hard cut into the news story because this broke, at least in my consciousness, right before we went live. I was going to start the show with Tim Walz and his message of a couple of weeks ago. It's an amazing thing. You get Tim Walz coming out now and saying, we really need to tone down the rhetoric after 2 Minnesota lawmakers are murdered, 2 others shot. We really need to tone down the rhetoric. All of this hot talk is going to lead people to violence. As though the stinking jackass barely 3 weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, maybe less, didn't just say this. I'll leave the volume.
Oh. The governor's being mean, and the governor's speaking out on that. Well, maybe it's time for us to be a little meaner. Maybe it's time for us to be a little more fierce.
Let me just play that from the beginning, and then we'll go slow through this. This man now, yesterday, after 2 Minnesota lawmakers get murdered and 2 others get shot by quite clearly an unhinged lunatic, if it's indeed the right person, is a bit of tone down. Why? Oh, why is it always the right with their hot rhetoric? He said this a couple of weeks ago.
The governor's being mean, and the governor's speaking out on that. Well, maybe it's time for us to be a little meaner. Maybe it's time for us to be a little more fierce.
Well, what could that mean? What could that mean? Oh, by the way, here's the notice of appointment of Tim Walz appointing the man who would go on to murder 2 lawmakers to his governor's workforce development board in 2019.
The governor's being mean, and the governor's speaking out on that. Well, maybe it's time for us to be a little meaner. Maybe it's time for us to be a little more fierce.
And I put out a tweet that basically says Tim Walz called on his supporters to be a little meaner, a little more fierce. A few days later, a man he appointed to the governor's workforce development board murdered the only Democrat who voted with Republicans to defund illegal aliens. No, but it's the right, and it doesn't mean anything, right? It's words when they say it, and then when something happens, they pretend that they've got a moral high ground, telling everyone to be nice and tone down the rhetoric. After you have Maxine Waters telling people to get in the faces of Republicans and harass them and let them know they're not welcome. You get AOC saying take to the streets and fight. You get who else? Who was it that said the fight will continue? Oh, then you get Chuck Shitface Schumer talking about the storm that the Supreme Court justices will bring upon themselves if they issue certain rulings. And then, for whatever the reason, one of these unhinged lunatics goes and shoots up a baseball field of Republican senators or lawmakers. And then they try to pretend that it was the right that did it. Now, whether or not it's the right, the left, or just psychotic people who hear these messages and think that they are the righteous ones in their own stories of depravity, that was Tim Walz. 2 weeks ago, barely a week ago, 3 days ago, 4 days ago, someone that he appointed to his governor work board, whatever the hell that was, bipartisan, my ass, dealing with racial equity, employment training, handicapped equity, goes out and kills the only lawmaker, Democrat, who voted with Republicans and shoots 2 others. I read an article as I was just prepping for the show, and I noticed that it was dealing with how the right spread brutal and cruel misinformation after Minnesota lawmaker killings. The right-wing media ecosystem spins up narratives to serve their agendas after tragic events, regardless of accuracy. Can you spell confession through projection? The Guardian. I can. Thy name is The Guardian. Tina Smith, Oh, now I got to sign in for this crap. Not gonna happen. Hold on one second. Oh, come on. I'm gonna have to go archive this. No, we are reading this one. This has probably been archived because it's a little older. Oh, come on. Bicycle here. That's it. Is that good enough? Oh, motorcycles here. I've been told that this is for training AI. Bus. Okay, this is a pot. This here, there. Does that one count? That count there? This, and this. Here, all of it. One more step. Thank you. Last archive 3 hours ago. Tina Smith, a Minnesota senator, confronted Mike Lee, a Utah senator, on Monday to tell him directly that his social media post fueled ongoing misinformation about a shooting that killed her friend. The fact that someone is close to or a victim of violence doesn't necessarily make their opinion on the matter more valid than other people's. Who was it? It was Mike Lee put out a tweet that said "Nightmare on Waltz Street." I wouldn't have put a tweet out like that. Not because of misinformation, disinformation. It's quite clearly commentary. Just because it's. I mean, not insensitive. It'll be misinterpreted. Plus, it's not a factual statement, nor is it a clear cut specifying what the criticism is. Lee's post, which advanced conspiracy theories that a Minnesota assassin was Marxist and blamed the state's governor for Melissa Hartman's death, were among many threads of false or speculative claims swirling around online. When you get to the punchline of this, it will make you not laugh. Smith told Lee his posts were brutal and cruel. He should think about the implications of what he's saying and doing. It just further fuels this hatred and misinformation. Oh, well, maybe we should follow Tim Wall's advice and get meaner and nastier. Is that what should happen? She wanted to hear directly how painful it was. Within hours of the shooting, right-wing social media accounts with millions of followers manufactured false conspiracy theories about the suspect and his motives, falsely portraying the man whose friends say he's an evangelical Christian Trump supporter. Oh my goodness, who's spreading false narratives now? Yeah, go listen to his freaking roommate, and don't ask why he has a roommate, you dumb jackasses. Go listen to the man who's married with 5 kids but has 2 male roommates in a beat-up shack. And I'm not saying this to be judgmental, but don't ask why he lives in a beat-up shack with 2 other men with roommates. Don't ask that. Why would you ask that? Why would you go ask his wife, Jennifer Belter, anything? And we're going to get there in a second because my name comes up in this article. False media. It is the latest example of right-wing media ecosystem that swiftly spins up narratives that serve their political agendas. Can they spell Nicholas Sandman, or have they forgotten about that? Regardless of accuracy, and does not correct them after further information shows them to be untrue or incomplete. Vance Luther Belter was captured Sunday after he allegedly killed the Democrat. Colin Rugg, an engagement farmer on X, advanced a debunkable theory to his followers on X that Hartman was killed over her healthcare policy. How is it debunkable? Implying the violence came from the left. Where's it debunked? He shared a video of her crying, looking terrified after she was explaining why she was the lone Democrat to vote with Republicans. I'm sure it's just a pure coincidence that the lone Democrat to vote with Republicans was killed. Missing from the post was the context. Hartman supported this care, only voting for its repeal to pass a state budget deal in an evenly split House Senate. That makes it even worse, The Guardian. She wanted to pass it, but didn't, and was the lone Democrat to vote with the Republicans that passed a budget deal that defunded illegal aliens. And this might piss somebody off who might be involved in the foreign aid, helping in the Democratic Republic of Congo type individual. They think they're debunking this by saying, oh, missing from the post was the context. She only supported this. She supported this care, but only voted for repealing it to get a budget through with the help of the Republicans. Do you hear yourself, The Guardian? I don't think you do. Right-wing social media personality like Michael Cernovich with 1.5 million followers escalated the lie by suggesting Walz ordered the assassination. I don't think they understand sarcasm when they see it, or hyperbole. I haven't seen Mike's tweet about this, but I like Mike. I'm not going to... Between The Guardian framing something that Cernovich said and my knowledge of Mike, I know Mike as a human personally. He's a good man. The Guardian is shit. You can quote me, The Guardian. He hasn't taken down the post and has continued to advance the claims. Posting on Monday, Democrats know they are now seen as the party of political violence, so their propaganda agents are trying to shift the blame. It won't work. That sounds like an absolutely accurate statement, you shitheads, The Guardian. It kind of sounds exactly like what Mike Waltz said about 2 weeks ago. Maybe we need to get a little meaner. Maybe we need to get a little nastier. Laura Loomer, the far-right conspiracy theorist and Trump whisperer, posted Waltz goons are now assassinating lawmakers who support legislation Waltz opposes. I wouldn't have drafted a tweet that way. A terrorist organization. She called the Democratic Party a terrorist organization. If it acts like one, if it walks like one, at some point you're going to have to call a spade a spade. Loomer and others also tried to tie Belter to No Kings protests. Officials found rudimentary signs in the suspect's vehicle that said No Kings, an indication he knew of the event, not that he would attend it as a protester. Do they understand what a narrative and a spin is? This entire effing article is narrative spin. Oh, they tried to falsely claim that he was connected to the No Kings. He had signs in his car that said No Kings, but they were only rudimentary. They weren't sophisticated pamphlets. What the hell does that even mean? Who's the author here? I'm going to go Rachel Lingang and Jason Gideon. All right, I'll DM them privately. What does a sophisticated, highly developed pamphlet for a protest look like, you stupid jackasses? Elon Musk, a frequent poster of unverified right-wing claims, amplified the narrative to his 200 million, quoting claims that the left killed Hortman, saying the left is murderously violent. Well, do we need to go to that leftist guy who shot the man at a Trump protest and then gave an interview to Vice later on, then ended up getting into a fatal shootout with the cops? Belter's own recorded sermons expose his extremist views. He was definitely Christian, or at least pretending to be, while he's off gallivanting, doing aid in the DRC, which definitely not suspicious. Flying directly from the DRC to Washington, definitely not suspicious. After having served on the Workforce Governance Board that operates in promoting Waltz's agenda of racial equity, definitely not suspicious. Don't ask any of these questions, The Guardian. You're doing wonderful work of journalism. We can skip this. Influencer seized on Belter's appointments to the state board, branding him a Waltz appointee to misleadingly suggest a personal relationship. Oh, nobody said personal. We said professional. We said Waltz knows who this guy is. This wasn't like appointing 1,000 people as, I don't know. There were 41 people on the board. And by the way, The Guardian, you raging propagandist jackasses, you know who else was on the board serving at the time when Belter was on the board? Hoffman, the other guy that he shot. In reality, Belter was first appointed by Waltz's predecessor, yet we all knew that, a Democrat, in 2016 to a 60-member advisory board. Waltz did, however, renew the appointment. They just throw in. Yeah, he did, however, renew it for another 4 years. Considered a routine administrative decision. It was the equivalent of calling a Sunday school volunteer an appointee of the bishop, a local reporter wrote. No, it wasn't, because the document actually says appointed, an appointment. And enter Viva. Right-wing X-user Viva Frei, with more than 700,000 followers. First of all, thanks for the promotion, Guardian. Posted a thread casting doubt on Belter being a Trump supporter. The account has continued to post about the shootings, attempting to tie Waltz to Belter and his wife, Jennifer. A different Jennifer Belter interned in Waltz's congressional office, though Frei is not accepting that answer. Quote, do you believe Governor Tim Walz spokesperson when they claim that the Jennifer Belter who interned for Tim Walz in 2010 is not the same Jennifer Belter who was married to the suspected assassin domestic terrorist Vance Belter? The account asked in a poll. Let's pause it right there. Do you know what the results of that poll were? 95% of the people, the respondents, do not believe the Tim Walz spokesman when they say it's a different Jennifer Belter. Now, I've said this day in and day out. I'll admit, when to ask whether or not it was the same Jennifer Belter in the context of the news as it was being broken and as it was being discovered, and when I go to the Minnesota website and I see that Jennifer Belter interned for Tim Walz in 2010 for 2 months, was paid $3,566.66, give or take. The thought didn't occur to me. Maybe it's another Jennifer Belter. We're not dealing with a name like Steve Smith, Mike Jones. I don't even know what the most popular woman's name is now. Karen Smith. Karen Smith, okay, maybe. Jennifer Belter, Boelter. It's not the most common name on earth. There are apparently 11 other Jennifer Belters in Minnesota, a state with a population of 5.4 million people. It's possible it's another Jennifer Belter, and so help me goodness, if it is, I will not just correct, I will amplify that information. Tim Walz has a flipping history of lying, and above and beyond a vague, ambiguous, bald affirmation assertion. It's a different Jenny Belter. Please move along, guys. You're damn right I'm going to be skeptical, The Guardian. Have you asked for any physical evidence? Have they provided you any physical evidence? It might be the most Magnolia-esque of coincidences. Greenberry Hill level coincidences. If you haven't seen Magnolia, go watch it. It's a work of art. It might be a coincidence, and I promise you, if it is, and it's a different Jennifer Belter, I will happily, gladly, and proudly correct and make sure that that information is known. When it comes to being right, it's not a question of being right. It's a question of getting it right. And despite what anyone thinks about me on earth, my only goal is to get it right. And if I make a mistake, like accidentally thinking a fake tweet was real, I'll repeat it for longer than the person who wrote the tweet or was alleged to have will repeat it. If it turns out to be a different Jennifer Belter, I'll buy a lottery ticket. I might still, in my heart of hearts, be forever skeptical. But where the hell's the evidence? Other than a Tim Walz spokesman saying, nope, it's a different Jennifer Belter, move along. But thank you, The Guardian. You could have DM'd me, and well, maybe you couldn't DM me because my DMs aren't open, but you're idiots. So it's not an appointment. It was just a routine renewal for 4 years to a board that has, let's just say, 60 people, one of whom was Hoffman, who Belter also shot. Belter, who nobody's asking how he gets to the Dominican Republic of Congo, or if he does. And no, Tim Walz, his spokesperson said it's a different Jennifer Belter. Move along. And I have to get into discussions with people online. What kind of 30-year-old woman would take an internship? It was 2 months. Who the hell knows? I don't know exactly what was going on in Tim Walz's office at the time. I don't know if there was some event that he needed extra staff for. But if there's evidence and the person comes and says, will the real Jennifer Belter please stand up? Then I will happily and gladly correct and amplify that correction. Until then, sorry, call me skeptical, call me a conspiracy theorist. The astronomical impossibility of the 11 other Jennifer Belters in a state of 5.5 million people, that one of them happened to work for Tim Walz and the other one happened to be married to the man who was appointed by Tim Walz, who just murdered a state lawmaker. I'll be skeptical until I see the concrete evidence. On Monday, post showing a man at a protest with a shirt and a gun. Yeah, that was bad. There was clearly someone posting a picture that was clearly not the same guy, saying this is it. And there was a guy with a gun in his shirt at a Democrat rally. Those are embarrassing mistakes to make. And that one was, it doesn't matter. Local Republican officials have largely not contributed to the rumors, in some cases pushing back on the narratives. Harry Niska, Republican floor leader, Minnesota House, said on X that he often has and will continue to criticize Walz's policy and rhetoric, but there's no responsible basis to attribute to him any of the evil acts committed by Vance Belter. Well, I would say that you don't actually have the basis to say that right now. The ball doesn't lie, and there might be those levels of coincidences, but that committee was bipartisan. My ass. Bipartisan committees don't bring on MAGA supporters to talk about racial equity in employment and training. That he was a registered Republican in 2000 to 2004. That he has some unknown roommate and nobody's asking why, reading off a phone and nobody's asking to see the text, that this guy was a Trump supporter and he somehow knows how his friend voted, even though there's no record of that. Take that guy at his word and ignore everything else. But I made it into the Guardian article.